I'll call the Public Services Committee meeting to order at 6 o'clock. First order, I guess, is since Jan is not here and neither is Cedra, but Jan would be the chair appointed. So since the chair is not here, I need that motion from this body to appoint somebody as the chair. We need a motion in a second, and then
a motion to have Jim be the chair this evening.
it's a motion by Dawn for Jim to be the chair, a second by Eric. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor of Jim being the chair signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously 5-0. Jim, you're the chair. Do you want to do it here or do you want to move to there?
Yeah, so this is temporary because Jan is the chair of the committee. She couldn't make it here tonight. She's traveling. I am going to stay on as an alternate, so I'll come as often as I can, and it worked out well today, so. I thank you all, and on to the agenda that I don't have in front of me. I think the minutes was first, so 4.1. Well, yep. So we're on number 2, probably. Roll call, noted, Reese. Recital of Pledge of Allegiance. It's Dawn. Could you lead us? It's to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So item number 4.1 is approval of the minutes of the March 17th meeting. So I'd be looking for a motion and a second to approve the minutes or any discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Dawn. Is there a second? Thank you, Eric. I guess a little bit of discussion. My understanding of motions that if you believe it to be true, you can approve it. You don't actually have to be here at that meeting. So everybody can make that choice when I call the motion or call for a roll call or whatever. So is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes as written, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? It passes unanimously. 6-0. Item number 5 is public comment. I'll note that we have that as a consistent topic for whenever somebody comes in, they can talk to us even if it's an item not on the agenda. So we keep that active or that item on pretty much all of our village board meetings to make sure there's opportunities for anybody. Presentations, there is none tonight. And because under discussion items, number 7.1 we will start with, and then there'll be 7.2, which will be quite a lengthy presentation and discussion. But 7.1, committee members and staff introduction. If I could ask staff to start, and I'm thinking Reese is a good one to start.
Yeah, I figured it just made sense to have this as an agenda item since there's so many new faces. I know we did some introductions beforehand, but thought we can kind of go around and introduce ourselves. And I don't know if you want to share something about yourself, you can. If you don't want to, I guess it doesn't matter to me, but so I can start. I'm Reese O'Malley. I'm the Recreation and Community Enrichment Director for the village. Been with the village for about 7 years now. And yeah.
I'm Greg Hall. I'm the Deputy Director of Public Services. Been with the village for going on 21 years. Kind of started in the water utility and worked my way up through the projects coordinator position and now Deputy Director.
I'm Judd Blau. I'm the Director of Public Services, Deputy Administrator and IT for the Village of DeForest. I've been with the village in this role for about 4 years. Prior to that, I was actually served on the village board for 10 years as a village board president and 3 years before that as a trustee. So I've been in your shoes, having served on the Parks and Rec Committee and Public Services Committee, which this is the best of those both worlds combined into one committee. So I've been in your shoes. I understand it's sometimes you have to make difficult decisions, but what with your gut, everything will work fine. So.
I guess maybe I'll start as a committee member. So I started working, or I shouldn't say working, volunteering my time at Village of DeForest 22 years ago. So I just edged out Greg, but I started at the planning and zoning. My time obviously doesn't count as much as Greg, though. One day a month it was at that time to go to the planning and zoning committee meeting. So on that order, I did not edge Greg out, but I was on planning and zoning for quite some time before I chose to run for village board. I've been on the village board for just over 4 years now. And this committee started 2 years ago, correct? And that's when we started, again, this committee. I am a engineer and land surveyor by trade, so I'd like to think that helps out some of this public work stuff. And in my extra time that I have, I help out with the Friends of the Yahara River group. And parks are and trail systems are very important to me. So again, I hope that adds a little bit to this committee. So that's about it for me. Guess maybe I'll look to Dawn, since she didn't want to chair the meeting, maybe to start this portion.
Dawn Clemens. I have lived in DeForest for 48 years, raised 4 kids and a grandson that also went to the DeForest schools, so they're great schools. I was on the original Parks Committee about 33 years ago. Not for a real long time, but for a couple of years. And then also on the Pool Committee and our other little Parks Committee that wasn't, I don't know what you would call it, but, and now 2 years on this. I volunteer where I can. I like volunteering. I love this committee. It does so much for DeForest. I like to volunteer here, and I'm looking forward to another 2 great years, and I'm glad to see all these new faces.
The veterans. Yeah. I'm Eric Larson. I have lived in DeForest for about 25 years. I just built my house about 10 years ago out in Conservancy, and I teach at Edgewood University. So going on my 3rd year. And I'm getting a puppy on Sunday that I've waited for 2 years to finally get, and he is coming Sunday. Drive to Indiana to get him. A West Highland Terrier, because they're hypoallergenic, and if they're dirty, I can tell right away because they're pure white. So that way I could just rinse them off. I'm fine. There's a reasoning for it.
Hi, my name's Stacy Peterson. I've been living in DeForest about 4 years now. I've been serving on this committee for 11 minutes. Outside of this, I serve the children and families of Wisconsin at DCF, supporting the cabinet secretary. And I live over by Yahara. I don't know. My favorite color is blue.
Hi, my name is Greg Payne, and I live in the Sunnybrook neighborhood with my wife. 4-year-old son and seven-month-old daughter, and our Siberian Husky. So we love the parks here in DeForest and walking on the trail. It's one of our favorite hobbies. And I'm also an engineer by trade. So I have a degree in civil engineering, also a certificate in environmental studies. What else?
Photographer.
I'm also a photographer too, not a professional one, semi-professional. I'll sometimes like take photos for my church that I go to at Heartland and Sun Prairie. Also a certified drone pilot. Yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Alicia Williams. I've lived in DeForest for a little over 6 years, and I currently work for Humana as a community health worker. So really just in Dane and Rock counties, meeting people, helping them with housing and the social determinants of health so that they can thrive. I have 2 kids. I have a 12-year-old Michael and a newly 15-year-old Dominic. My favorite thing about DeForest is the green space. So kudos to all the years of experience. You've made it quite a refuge for me. So I appreciate that. And yeah, I've been on the board just like Stacy, probably now 14 minutes. So I'm happy to be here. Thanks. And my dad is an engineer, so I'm not an engineer, but I have lived with one. So I feel like that counts.
A lot of table talk, I'm sure. I feel like I neglected something. I've got 2 daughters, 28 and 21 in a few days. My oldest is getting married soon in New Hampshire in October, so I've got that planned. And my dog Blue is not hypoallergenic. He sheds all over the place and is a high energy Australian Shepherd, so. And I don't want to leave you out if you want to please share too.
So I don't quite have Greg, but I'm close. My name is Blake Tyson. I'm a landscape architect, not an engineer, also a planner. I've been consulting for the village since I think 2005 in the park and rec world. Worked with Don many times on projects. There's a couple bits of my signature around outside that window. In Conservancy Commons, some of the trails, Sunfish, what else? Ivor. Yeah, all over. So the pool, study. I said study, yeah. Thrilled to be back again with you guys tonight, generating some more ideas. I'm also a musician, so Judd and I have some common weekend things that we talk about. So yeah, thanks for having me back. I don't have any dogs.
Thank you, Blake. So that will conclude 7.1. Nice to meet you all, and I'm glad you're here on the board. Nice to hear about you too, Blake. And we will now move on to 7.2, the architecture plan. Is there any lead off by staff or go right to Blake?
We'll just give it over to Blake. He'll talk through the park plans and some of the costs associated with these plans as well. Sure. Okay, go ahead. I'll let you do it.
Tag team.
All right.
All right, so this study, for those of you who are now 17 minutes into your stint, began because the village finished their comprehensive outdoor rec plan, or CORP for short, last fall, right? Fall, winter-ish, 24, late 24. And essentially a CORP is a study of all your park and open space assets. And out of that study, which is traditionally done every 5 or so years, come the recommendations. And one of the biggest recommendations from that study was to do a deeper dive into some of the undeveloped and lesser developed properties. And so this study really takes that next step in looking at the opportunities for some of those properties. And during the CORP, there was a lot of public input, And so a lot of the ideas that we have feathered into these plans came from that process. It wasn't just me sitting in a box throwing things at the dartboard. There was some of that, but most of it was generated from the public comment. So the hope is that from this study, you guys have a tool that you can go back to the public and say, hey, do these ideas stick? Right? Does it make sense what you've asked us to investigate or not? So I don't think you guys have seen the narrative that went along with the graphics yet. So there's a narrative summary that talks about all the recommendations, and then, I don't know, 14 pages or so of cost estimates for each of the sites. So you guys will be getting that. But tonight, I think what we'll do is I can just walk through all the sites. I don't know how much time you've got for me tonight. I can talk all night, or we can keep it high level. But certainly I'm here to answer any questions. I think the concepts were in your packets, correct? All right, so you've at least seen that. All right. Jim?
Yeah, a question before we launch into that is, what is the sort of goal? I know there's some of the plans had, say, multiple alternatives. Are we going to try to knock it down to one, or are we going to go to the public with multiple alternatives?
So I think my understanding was that you guys were looking for options to present to the public and see if there's one that rises to the top. Oftentimes this process will yield hybrids. And so you may like ideas in concept A and some ideas in concept B. And oftentimes those get feathered together, and then you emerge with a preferred plan, which then becomes kind of your long-term roadmap.
I guess that is pretty much my understanding too. And just to speak maybe too far ahead, we've got the 3 different dates that I'm assuming was in the agenda or in the.
Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up. You guys are more than welcome to join us. We'd love to have you at our Park and Connect events. The first one's June 5th. They're Thursday evenings, 5:30 to 8:30 at Fireman's Park. Kind of coincides with another park event at the Fireman's Summer Series events. July 21st is 6 p.m. to 7:30 at Dale Jenkins Park, which is down off of Bear Tree Parkway in Fox Hills area by Hooper. It'll actually be this meeting. So we'll actually be on site at Dale Jenkins Park. So thanks for the reminder. Along with September 18th, is that not? It's not going to be a meeting night. So that's at Western Green Park. And the plan is we're gonna send letters to the people closest to the parks that are gonna be affected for this concept planning. So anybody close to Nelson Court, probably nobody, I don't think we'll send any letters to the industrial park users. We'll send some letters to residents that are adjacent to Ziggy Baseball Park. Rivers Turn, Phase 3, will send letters to people around that area, Dale Jenkins Park, Shannon Donald. So people we also have social media that will get the word out for these events as well. So it's on our Engage Deforest site. If you guys have never been to the Engage Deforest sites, find a lot of information about everything on there. Anything else, Judd?
I would also just say, one of the things we're also looking to do is start to engage the public on park names for all these parks. Cause North Industrial, and adjacent to Ziggy, ball field, it gets to be like a little bit of a mouthful. So, we started internally, sending out some ideas to staff, and then, we're gonna look to kind of narrow it down and get some ideas out to the public, for some additional feedback.
So Reese, I did look, the parcel adjacent to Ziggy, but that doesn't fit on your standard park sign, so that's got to change. You want to give me the amounts?
So again, thank you for that introduction. I'm just wondering, as we go through this, some of the names, like you said, aren't necessarily known. In fact, I would say if you haven't lived here for too long, I don't, well, I'm lucky where I know where they are, but if you could, when you go to them, just maybe give a brief discussion where it is.
Judd will probably put up the map here a little later and show you. where the
Are you-
parks are.
2 mice controls. You want me to pan around in here or?
Oh, I wouldn't get.
Okay. This dual mouse thing is messing me up. All right, so we'll start with the memo here real quick. So again, you guys will get a copy of this, but essentially what it does is it walks you through the purpose of the study, which I just outlined, defines what the 7 sites that we looked at are, where they're located, approximately how big they are. And then we get into the recommendations, and each of these is broken out by the legend of recommendations on each plan. So these should follow, if I did my numbering correctly, they should follow in order in that legend. And in cases where we had 2 different concepts, I do try to specify, which recommendation might show up in concept A or concept B. So hopefully the memo will follow along once you get it in your hands. If you have questions, certainly let me know. But so we get through all of this. A lot of content here we're going to cover tonight. And then I talk about how the OPCs, or the opinion of probable cost, was constructed. This is all we do. My firm is called Parkitecture. We design park and rec and aquatic facilities all over the place. So anytime we bid out a project, we have a database of unit costs, right? You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. And then as we develop our OPCs for other projects, we then fall back on our past database of prior projects. We know what a ton of asphalt might cost, or a square foot of 6-inch concrete might cost. And that helps inform us as we get into our OPCs, which look like this. So we know that, say, on Dale Jenkins, for example, after we do the design work, we know that we're going to have roughly 1,014 square feet of 6-inch reinforced concrete, just as an example. So then we apply the unit cost to that, and that spits out our numbers, and we get down to the bottom. We know about what we would anticipate if you were to bid this project out, what we should reasonably expect for a bid. At this point, since it's high-level concept, we're applying a 10% contingency, and then that gives you your total anticipated cost at the bottom. Does that all make sense? Okay. So I did some of these numbers. These unit costs may be a little bit high. $16 a square foot for reinforced 6-inch concrete is probably on the higher end. I know that you're not bidding this in 2025. So some of these numbers reflect some anticipated escalation. If it gets out past another 2 years, we're going to want to start applying an inflation factor. I will tell you guys, and both of the engineers facing me right now know this is a horrible time to forecast anything in the construction world. The minute I give you a number, it's wrong. And tomorrow it's even more wrong. So take these numbers for what they are. They give you a general sense of where we would expect. Yeah.
Just a quick question. Will the tariffs impact the price?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Especially when we talk about conservancy. So splash pad, pool, water park, all that equipment seems to come from Canada. I don't know why, but the entire water park industry is manufactured in Canada. And so all of that steel that the Canadians are buying from overseas in China is coming to Canada. They bend it, shape it, paint it, ship it to us, and we're paying for it. We have 6 splash pad projects right now that are in midst construction, 3 of which we have equipment stock because of this tariff thing. It's horrible as an owner. Not me, but the owner side. They don't know what to do because it could be 20%, right? These orders have been placed and paid for months, but they can't get the equipment because it's stock. So yeah, it's real. Sorry.
No, the
didn't
reason
think so.
I mean, the questioning is then, should we look at things that maybe we shouldn't get right now and work around it? In other words, I mean, are we gonna want to pay double for a water pad if,
Yeah, I don't know that we're looking at quite that extreme of an escalation. I mean, the steel that we're seeing coming in from Canada is at about 15% right now. So most playground companies are getting their steel from the US. Over the last few years, there was a program set in place called BABA, or Buy American, it's BABA. Anyway, it's designed to force people to buy American products. And so a lot of the playground companies who have traditionally outsourced steel from overseas have switched, and they're starting to buy American steel. So the program is working. We have seen pretty drastic escalations over the last, I would say, 4 years of post-COVID in that industry, but things are starting to stabilize a little bit, and people are getting used to paying that. And so the manufacturers have backed off their annual escalations. In 21, 22, even into 23, we were seeing 15 to 20% every year of escalation in playgrounds. Not a great time to be buying playgrounds.
I'd add,
Well-
most of these projects aren't gonna happen until 26 or beyond, right? So, things can change, right? That's the one thing I know is for sure that things will change, so.
If nothing else, it gives us an idea of where we're at today. And, you know, there were years where lumber was crazy and building a house was a horrible decision, right? So you never know what's going to happen year to year. We just have to keep moving forward, I think.
And I would add that that's part of what the contingency can cover too. And it's, like Jed mentioned, it's gonna be something that we plan, so it's gonna be in the capital improvement plan that will be discussed and take those things into account. And I do like your thought, Eric, but I think we can move forward with the discussions, and maybe we anticipate that those things in the
The other thing to keep in mind is with park projects, we get park impact fees from development that occurs, right? So there's two buckets of money that we get. There's park in lieu of fees. So if somebody builds a development and they don't want to provide parkland for us, they have to pay us X dollars amount per
Dwelling unit.
right? Which equates into a acreage value. And then there's in park improvement fees. So the park improvement fees we can use to improve any park. It doesn't have to be the park that's specifically in their development, and especially if there's not one there. So we have, I think, almost $700,000 in there currently. Or is it more?
We'll have probably closer to 2 million by the time.
Oh, when these other
We
developments
got two
come.
developments that are giving us like 700,000 piece, so.
Yeah, so a lot of these park improvement costs will come from that, right? So, I mean, again, we don't want it to break the bank because it costs 15% more, but it's not necessarily tax dollars that are going to provide for the building of these parks.
wondering, just because it's sort of a big elephant in the room right now. I mean, we all have to just sort of know where the heck we're going. That's all.
Yeah, so I just want to add something to your comment about the park impact fees, because I was in another community last week and they said, you know, instead of spending all this money that we've collected from developers on parks, why don't we buy new police uniforms or, you know, insert whatever here? Not the way it works. That money by statute has to go to park improvements. So as that money comes in, it can't get feathered out to buy fire trucks or uniforms or any of that other stuff. It has to go back into your park system.
And I believe there's a timeline on when you have to spend that by, so we can't just like keep it in the bank forever. It's gotta be spent in a certain timeline. Or it goes back to the developer.
Yeah, the other nuance of that is park impact fees are designed to go into green space adjacent to the community or the neighborhood that it came out of. So let's say you're building neighborhood over here. You can't take that $700,000 that you got in impact fees and build a park over here to serve the other side of the community. It's designed to service the residents who are living in that spot. That make sense? Whew, that was a lot of good 101 there. Okay, so let's jump into some of the concepts. So since the packets went out, or since the initial concepts went to staff, we put together some additional boards for every site, because when these guys go out to the public and when this gets posted, some people aren't going to know where Dale Jenkins Park is. And so we've created an existing conditions sheet, which should have just an empty air photo of your current conditions. And then you have a board of existing site photos. So a lot of people don't know the parks by name, but they recognize a play structure, or they recognize a shelter or some sort of physical asset. So it's always nice to have this in front of people when you're talking to them. They can say, oh, this is my house. I'm the yellow one over here. You know, I have the big, what do you have for dog? What is it? The Australian West Highland Terrier, right? So I'm the one with the yappy West Highland Terrier over here in the backyard. But everyone loves to relate to a space by telling a story. So we like to have these images. Okay, so then we get into the concept plans. And for Dale Jenkins, we just put together one, because when I did the first phase of this 4 years ago or so, did I screw it up? Oh. Let me know when you guys are back. You're back. All right, great. So Dale Jenkins, we did the first phase of this, I think 3 years ago, Greg, is that right? Ish? Somewhere just me, which included the grading of the soccer fields, the sledding hill, the playground, and then the multi-use trail that bisects the park. So that is existing conditions. You can kind of see it. Right, you can see the trail kind of snaking through. The playground's up here by the trees. The field is clearly graded in. So Dale Jenkins, we knew what we had to infuse there to supplement it. And so the highlights here is an expansion of the playground up here, which is this brown shaded area, to better serve the 2 to 5 age group. Because anytime we do a playground, we want to make sure we're serving 2 age groups, 2 to 5 and 5 to 12. Equipment is designed for those 2 age groups based on level of ability, sense of danger, air quotes danger, right? Maybe challenge is a better word for that. So we want to supplement the equipment that's there so we serve all the age groups. We've shown 2 sidewalk connections so that our playground is considered ADA accessible, which currently it's not because we don't have that connection. And then we have an open air shelter shown down here. 2 options, a restroom, a small restroom building, or some sort of screening mechanism for a porta potty to help serve the soccer activity that is currently programmed. We've left the southwest quad open. When we initially did the plan a few years ago, we actually had a basketball court shown there. We heard from some of the neighbors that that wasn't their preferred option, so that's come out. And then we do have some yard games. So if you guys have ever been out here during an event, we've got bags and table tennis. So taking that concept and bringing it into Dale Jenkins seemed like a good fit for the neighborhood.
If I can just add, so the porta potty surround, if we were to put a restroom there, we would have to pay MMSD fees, which are pretty significant fees. And we'd have to CSM out a little portion of the park just for that. And then they open the road for sewer and water connections. So we would be adding a lot more money to the project.
For the sake of the newbies, if you guys don't know, MMSD is the Madison Metro Sewer District, which is what we would connect up the sanitary sewer for the restroom building. And then CSM is a certified survey map. And so we would have to, sorry, Greg, we're going to tag team here tonight. So a CSM would essentially parcel out that little square around the restroom building, because otherwise they have to pay the MMSD fees on the entire park, which gets pretty spendy pretty quick. Yeah.
If anything that could be developed in the future, so this park, if I were to guesstimate, just to connect the Madison Metropolitan Sewage District would probably be $110,000. something along that line. Now, if we can just parcel out this little section around here, that might bring it down to 10,000 or something, but it's steep. So, but there would be a cost for us to get a certified survey map done with our attorneys and whatnot, so.
Or less than $110,000.
Significantly less though, yes.
Sorry, porta potties are probably a better option due to like less vandalism too, right? Or I'm just on that board and I see it.
It's probably different vandalism. You know, you might have kids who want to kick it over, but probably less costly damage than spray painting a brand new building or destroying the lavatory inside the restroom, filling it with paper towels, making Greg go out and fix it on a Saturday afternoon.
We just did have some kids put large sticks in the one off of Innovation Drive, like filled the whole thing up with large sticks, porta potty. Crazy.
What happens like during the winter months with the porta potty? It just
They get removed from site and they're stored off in your contractor's yard.
We actually have been leaving some out in certain locations through the winter, and they'll come out and service them. So,
Yeah, I suppose here, given the sledding hill, you might want to leave this one. I don't know, I don't know, how much is it used?
no, we would probably remove this one in the winter time. We need snow too.
Yeah, true. That's a good point. Well, pretty soon we'll have to pay tariffs on snow. From Canada, yeah, right. Any other questions on Dale Jenkins? This one was pretty straightforward, just because the groundwork had already been laid in phase one. All right, I'm gonna keep going. Okay, so the next is Nelson Conservancy. So again, first sheet is the existing conditions. You can see it's at the northern end here of Nelson Court. It's a large wooded, oh, you guys aren't seeing this. Let me flip. Okay, it's a large wooded area. The Yahara bends around it. So it's a great natural asset that's never been tapped as a recreational destination. It's just sort of existed. So the idea here was to get public access into the space. Again, with the Yahara wrapping around 60% of the site, it seemed like a pretty good option. So what we've shown in the southwest corner is a small parking lot for public access, because right now it's just the dead end of a street. We've got, I think, 17 or so parking stalls shown, ADA parking, and then a small modular restroom. And when I say modular restroom, because I'm gonna use that term a couple times tonight, there's a couple companies that make precast concrete restroom buildings. And if you've ever been to a state park, you've probably been in one. That one had a pit. This is not what I'm talking about. It's the same company, but now they're making flush facilities. And so it could look like it's made of lap siding or stone, but it's all precast concrete. So they're essentially bomb-proof. That we've been using them a lot in communities. They're a really great option to do stick building or doing block built buildings, because they're constructed completely off-site in the manufacturer's controlled setting. And then they get trucked in on a flatbed and craned in. And essentially 2 days later, you have a fully functional restroom building.
Could they also be used for like tornadoes?
For
For protection? I mean, if they're bomb-proof?
Oh, for shelter? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We do quite a bit of summer camp work up in the North Woods, and we use that strategy quite a bit. You know, they function as a shower and restroom building, and then when there's storms, they're concrete bunkers.
I would add, we talked a little bit about those MMSD fees. This property already has some lands that are in MMSD.
Yeah.
Good. Mhm. I don't want to speak for,
I don't know that this parcel paid the MMSD fees. Typically development kind of hold. I'd have to dig in to find out if they paid that or not. But again, the same system would, the same scenario would apply here, where we'd probably have to pay those connection fees. Especially if we did it not in the park. You'll see in the next image, he adjusts it somewhere else, and then we would probably have to pay those. So, but we'll cross that when we get there if we need to.
The interesting thing, though, is the utilities are actually run into the site. which tells me maybe or that fee has been done. But both the concepts, we're showing the restroom as close as we possibly can to the utility so we can CSM out the smallest amount. So once you get into the park, then we've shown a crushed limestone trail looping the entire parcel with a center spine so you can get back up to the middle quickly or back to the restroom quickly if you need to, or your kids need to. I've shown a clearing out in the middle, which I believe is already partially underway. There's been some invasives and some dead trees that were harvested off the site. So not trying to clear cut this, we're just sort of expanding on the momentum that's already started. The brown nodes that you see spaced around is representative of these natural play pods. So this didn't feel right for a traditional playground setting, but we do see value in, if you look at the bottom two images, sort of non-traditional nature play has become very interesting to a lot of people. And so we're doing them all over the state. Again, it's got to be the right setting. I wouldn't want to stick that out here in environments. That's not the right setting either. So, you know, the scale can change depending on how much of this natural play you want to build. But there are a few companies that have sustainable farms. They harvest black locust trees, which is a very, very dense wood. And that's what they make a lot of this out of because it doesn't rot. And so it's kind of like when we were kids, that's what we played with. We were all tree trunks and sticks and stuff, right, Judd? Yeah. So it's sort of getting back to nature, and this has felt like a really good setting for it. The other piece I wanted to highlight here is we are showing a connection from our internal pathway network out to your existing bike trail along North Stevenson. Turns out that Greg salvaged a bridge from another spot on Western Green, was it?
Yeah, we've got two bridges right now, Western Green, and I think they're both from Western Green Park.
So it's just sitting there looking for a home. So we tried to give it a home here, crossing the Yahara, which would actually be a great access for those people who are riding on the bike path on Stevenson. So that was concept one. Concept two is a little deviation on that. This is sort of the wheel concept. We put spokes into the middle from all the different play pods. Same parking lot configuration. Here you see the restroom building is even closer to the utilities. So that would be a smaller CSM, smaller cost and infrastructure in the pipes. The open air shelter, we've moved out into that middle space. So trying to activate the center of this park a little bit, some gathering area. Questions on that? Yeah.
With these concepts, will the trees be cleared in between the paths or will it remain wooded?
It'd remain wooded as possible because it's actually got it's a really good oak savanna in there. Mainly what we're removing right now is buckthorn and some box elder.
A good example of what we would do here, if you've gone to Rigstead Park, which is down by Tolkien Creek Park, by the Pine Cone, or it's not the Pine Cone, the Truckers Inn, right, that behind the Park Apartments there. We weaved a limestone trail around existing trees just to kind of have a zen place. This idea kind of came, I went out east a couple years ago, and there's a sensory park out there that I visited that has a lot of tactile things for people on the spectrum, right? So some of these nodes, we can put some of these play structures in as Blake has labeled. Others we can do on our own, right? We can do stepping stones because we could have different varying stumps, you know, from a 1 inch to up to 6 inch stump, and people can walk that, or they can feel varying things. One of these could be a sound, like a, you know, make drum noises or whatnot.
Hollow log, you can hit it and make different sounds, yeah.
Right, so it kind of infuses all of that kind of feeling into it, but then we want to keep it still wooded, right? So it's going to have that feel. It's not going to be wide open.
Yeah, I think the top, or the second image from the top right there is sort of the essence of what we're going to try and do while we're removing the invasives, because that is just good practice to get rid of the junk.
I guess if I could interrupt real quick, it brings up a good point when we talk about parks or for zoning, it's called conservancy or C1. That's a very broad, I'll use the term spectrum again, of what is actually a park. So there's active parks and passive parks. And I don't know, I'd say conservancy is more of a passive or majorly passive park, so. Reese or anybody in the field want to add to that, or?
I mean, I think you really covered it. I think there are many parks that can have both active and passive. Western Green is a perfect example. There's passive portions of that park, but there's also active portions of the park. And so it's just kind of looking at the areas that we have and identifying the uses for those areas, so.
Judd? I'm sorry. When is that path going to be done along North Street? That,
Oh, this year we'll be starting Highway V project will be happening July-ish timeframe, I think will be a kickoff. So that there'll be a path extending east, north of Highway V from Main Street all the way out to, it'll connect to the path that's there by Hauser Street. So,
okay, in July?
yeah, they'll start in July. So it won't be done until September, October, but.
Any other questions or should I move on? All right, we'll move on. So the next is North Industrial. We struggled a little bit here with finding an accurate air photo because the construction has occurred since anyone flew it. So Greg, maybe you can go out and fly it for us. Yeah. So if you have not been out there, maybe you guys with dogs have been out there. Not yet, Eric. But the dog park is just off the screen to the bottom left here. So there is some informal parking along the roadway. We're proposing to formalize that, double the stall capacity that's there. We've heard that it's quite busy, and we think that by activating this north space that isn't currently active now, you'll want some extra parking. As part of that here, as you enter the spaces and exit the parking, we've shown a small gathering node. There really isn't a place to sit and sort of converse with others before you launch into the dog park. So this little corner here could be a small gathering node, nothing real formal, just mulch surfacing, some picnic tables, maybe some shade. So then another crushed limestone trail leads you up into the northern area of this park. And this was a challenging site, guys, because the river is right here. It is within the floodplain, so our development options were pretty limited. So again, very passive use. We can't change the earthwork quantities in this space, meaning we can't take dirt out and we can't bring dirt in, dirt or other construction materials. We have to find a balance because it's within that floodplain. So what we're showing here in this brown is a dirt pump track. And if you've never seen a dirt pump track or skills park, this bottom right image would give you an example. It gives kids and adults, for that matter, a place to ride on their BMXers or their dirt bikes or whatever they have. The idea of a pump track is it's all momentum based. So once you get into your flow, I didn't make that up, that's a term. Once you get into your flow, the momentum will carry you around the track, up and down the rollers, and it becomes a really fun experience and a really good way to sort of become one with your bike and figure out your balance. And then these riders will often go on to mountain bike courses that are much more challenging. So it's a great way to get into the sport. So we've got a shade structure shown up here. And then in this northern reach, we talked about doing a tree nursery for the village. And so you can start to grow your own street trees and park trees. And that's quite a bit of space actually up here. And then we would have access off of the northern road. We'd gate that off so that only village staff can get in. But the nice thing about having this location is it also could become an education piece. So you can tag the trees and have kids and families come up and see what a ginkgo tree might look like, or what what's your favorite tree, Greg?
Oak tree.
What an oak tree might look like. You know, you've got them all in a grid, and it's a great way to get some education there. So the second option is a variation. We've actually included all the same elements, but added a couple spur legs off of here to get portal access into the river, whether that's actually getting into the water or whether it's more of an interpretive station. Could be a small platform with some interpretive signage about the headwaters of the Yahara or the giant fish that swim in our Yahara rivers. Just kidding. Right, yeah. I wasn't gonna say it, Judd, but so we also have run a trail up and all the way around the nursery. And then do you guys want to talk about this northern corner and the artesian well?
Sure, kind of by number 11 there, there's a artesian well that's, or spring that's coming up out of the ground out of a piece of pipe. And it's flows a lot of water. It's might be just on the other side of the property line. We have to go investigate that further.
Up and move it, yeah.
We'll just, yeah, move the pipe a little bit.
Yeah, just move it, yeah.
It's a good idea.
No, the idea was, again, to try and get some education into some of these natural assets that you have in the village that most people don't even know exist. So,
Could we, if it's on our land, could we use the water then for the trees? I mean, obviously, keeping it all right in the area and everything.
Might be able to. Yeah, it all depends on exactly what we can do with that.
you could just pull it out of the river like California does.
Yeah.
You know,
We could pump it out of the river.
just kidding. Yeah.
Would there be any thoughts on like adding parking at Yahara Road then, just because of the distance between parking near the dog park, I guess?
Yeah, that's something we could look at. I think we avoided it. We know that there's that northwest corner is a bit spongy. There's some stormwater stuff happening up there. So it wasn't a very big space and we could probably get 5 or 6 cars in that spot, but I don't actually know what the right of way is off of Yahara. So we'd have to look at that. But yeah, that's something that could be investigated. It is a ways. I'm hoping that we've got kids on bikes and they can bike up that route, but yeah, who knows?
I just think it's interesting. I didn't know about that spring and I'm wondering how close it is to the Yahara Road. Just because I have a handful of friends that drive to, I think, Rock Springs to get spring water. So if there's ones closer, that might get pretty active.
Are we televised here tonight? Because this is now no longer a secret. Yeah, right. Okay. So where are we at here? This is one river or 2 rivers? I am so confused. Rivers Turn?
River's Turn.
Rivers Turn. Okay, this is confusing. It's Rivers Turn subdivision, but it's River Turn Park.
No,
No? Yes. No?
there's a Rivers Turn Park, but this is Rivers Turn Phase 3. So it was part of the Rivers Turn development.
I see. This is one of the ones we need a name for.
Yes.
Yes, because I am thoroughly confused every time we talk about it.
Yeah, so it's not far from Conservancy Commons Park.
Sorry, the actual Rivers Turn Park is here off of Innovation Drive. This park is in the Rivers Turn development, but it's this parcel here. There's homes built here. These homes are built already, I think, and this road is being put in at this point in time right now. This is what's keeping Eric from sleeping in, so.
All right, so your homework is to come up with a name for this park, so I'm no longer confused.
It's gonna be called the It's 7 o'clock, Get Up and Walk Park.
Yeah. So I mentioned the corp right off the bat. So one of the things that we like to do when we're planning a park and open space system in a community is make sure that we have amenities, whether it's a basketball court or playground or shelter, spread out amongst the community. So we have equitable access throughout a community to all those types of facilities. One of the things that the village is, I don't want to say lacking, but maybe not well distributed is basketball. So you'll see both of these plans do show a basketball court with a tennis court overlay. So that's why you see the white and the blue striping on the pavement. That's a fairly common overlay. Those footprints are very, very close in size. The other overlay potential is pickleball, but that gets a little messier. There's a whole lot of striping when you start to overlay pickleball. We have the beautiful pickleball courts right over here. So in this plan, we are showing the connection of the path coming in from the west that was already constructed, looping through the path over to the east. So we've got access through the park. The existing stormwater pond here, just off our parcel to the south, we're showing a small berm in between the courts and the pond so we don't lose all the basketballs rolling into the pond. We've added a playground here and then a small open air shelter. So we've got a little day use activity node created here for the caretakers of those who are on the playground. And then we've tried to leave as much open space as possible for if Reese has programming. This isn't a big space, but there's still potential for the littles soccer or who knows what else you're going to put out there, Reese, but try to give you some flexibility in how that space could be used. We are sensitive to the north and west corners here, and so we are showing some landscape screening along those two property lines. It is hard once you have been in a home adjacent to an empty lot for a while, you get kind of used to that. And so even though the park has been in the plan for the neighborhood since it was conceived, it's still hard for people to see that change over time. So we like to soften the blow, not blow, but you know what I mean. So concept 2 takes a little bit different approach. We've moved the court down to the southwest or southeastern corner. So basically as far from any of the residential lots as it can go. That leaves a very, very flexible open space here that I think is probably a little bit more conducive to programming for youth sports because it's of this shape and its size. And we really like the connection between the playground area, the court, and the open air shelter. So you'll see in this configuration, I've got the courts laid out a little bit different. The tennis court obviously is the biggest footprint, and then we've put 2 half-court basketball courts 90 degrees to that. Most young park users don't need a full court basketball court. They just want to shoot hoops with their pals. And so a setup like this may actually be better for some of the littles who would use the space. We find that full court users are a much older group. And we think this might be an appropriate solution for this neighborhood. So.
And also add, this is the layout that we have for our multi-use court in the Tierney Park. So it's the exact same layout.
So the path alignment here is obviously different, right? We're connecting up on the west, we loop around onto the north line, but again, that helps frame out that large flexible green space. Any questions?
If I recall correctly, either the last meeting or the meeting before, you guys talked about this park and maybe doing a study of the people in the neighborhood. Has that been completed, or was that ever decided on?
So this is really what we're looking to do with these plans, is to get the feedback from them of, hey, we put something together, and see if it sticks, if it's something that they like, or ultimately you can say, oh, we definitely don't want any courts. And it's not like we're married to say it has to have a court in it. It's just giving some ideas, because I think from the public standpoint, if we just showed them this lot and said, what do you want in your park? We're going to get a lot of different things. And so kind of giving some ideas for them to work off of was our thought for it.
So actually, I'm going to contradict you. Oftentimes, if we go to a neighborhood with nothing on a plan, we get nothing in return. Seeing something that they can react to is how I prefer to do it, because we get a lot more discussion when they can say, oh, I love that, or oh, that's a terrible idea. when we say, what do you want here? Sometimes they'll sort of look at you with a blank stare and say, I don't know what fits. And so I think this helps at least them understand spatial allocations.
I
You're
also,
gonna-
I also do know, sorry, while we were doing the court process, I did talk to some people from this area, and because originally we were planning to do pickleball courts out at the athletic complex. And so they were like, oh, we really want pickleball courts, or we really want tennis courts, and so I think that's where then the discussion, even with the committee here, when we were talking about this area, kind of stemmed some of those ideas which were incorporated in the corp plan.
The other thing that we'll do is we'll actually reach out. We're gonna send mailers to those most affected. So they get notification of this. And then part of your duties of being on this committee is to reach out to your neighbors and talk to about it, right? So people have different feelings. Some people think I don't live here, so I shouldn't have any say about what happens in this park. I'm a different believer in that. I think I live in this village, so my tax dollars or the things that are happening, I should be able to have some say what's happening here, right? Not end all be all, but I think it takes everybody to collaborate, because someday maybe I move out there and that now is my neighborhood park, right? So the idea behind it is to get that feedback, which is why we're doing Parking Connects. We have it on Engage to Forest. I think we'll have comments open there for folks. So you can encourage folks, you can share it on social media. The village board also is kind of tasked with that, going out and trying to get people to give feedback, so.
Yeah, the other thing I always encourage people to think about is to think beyond just your immediate sphere, right? Yes, you have some personal interest in a space, but you have kids, you have parents, you may have grandkids, and they're all looking for different things in different places in your community. And so you have to think beyond just how you experience a space and think, more holistically. Did that answer your question with a whole lot more than you expected with words?
Is there a date that you're looking for a decision by?
Well, I don't think we're asking for a decision. I think these guys are going to be going out to get some public input, and then maybe there will be a decision before we get to that hybrid stage and someone decides, okay, this is what we're doing, and then we launch into the design and engineering. Yeah, a decision has to be made before then, but no, it's a good question. I don't know that the timeline has been established for that. There is money burning a hole in Judd's pocket, so he wants to get something done.
Tick, tick, tick.
Yeah. So I think 26 would be the earliest anything would actually go to implementation. There's, as you know, there's still design and engineering and bidding and all that has to happen.
So we have two parks that we're contemplating going to start next year to have a project, but we do have a capital improvement plan, often referred to as a CIP, that Greg and I, and then Reese, with park stuff, we kind of work together to slate in the timeline, and we try to go out 5 years. We've not been ambitious enough to go to 10, because 5 years is in just enough flux as it is. But we would lay in the next 5 years, different parks, right? How can we attack these, use these, and then use our funds, and also if there's an infusion of tax dollars to maximize that. So we'll be bringing those things back to you you'll see the CIP plan for the 26 budget come September timeframe here.
I guess I was going to add, as far as being on the village board, we're going to be starting our budgeting plan, which includes the CIP plan. We're starting that probably within months. So this architecture plan won't be to finalize by the time we get to, say, the budget or the CIP, but it will all thoughts working around at the same time. I guess I look at Judd or Reese, I wonder, do we know what we're doing as far as a process of these concept approvals, or is it ever get to approval? I know we're going to public information or involvement. I'm assuming it will come to this committee that will make a recommendation to the board. Is that what we're going to do, like the corpse plan?
Yeah, I wouldn't say, we didn't have a strict timeline on it. I think some of it's probably a little bit dependent on like public engagement and how the public engagement is going. We do obviously have flexibility. Our hope would be maybe we could start some of the projects next year, so we would want to have those done before budget time. But ultimately, if public engagement is requiring for additional time, then we're going to take that additional time to make sure that we get, a good process. And ultimately, I think we would come back to this committee with the final recommendations that we got from the public. And I don't know if we have to go to village board. I mean, we'd probably go to village board just to share them.
But nothing would be ever set in stone, right? Until we get to the final, we're doing this park this year in 26, right? So here's the plan that we're doing. Because we may have one of these slated to be happening in 29 and Gaga pits blow up or something, right? I don't know. Like, we need to, all of a sudden there's the newest thing, right?
That is,
Padel ball.
that is unrelated to Lady Gaga. I saw your face. You were a little confused about that. Lady Gaga is not involved in that.
Padel ball, I thought it was paddle ball, but it's padel ball, is pickleball, but with a flattened tennis ball and like points never end. So who knows what may be the next big thing that comes through that we need to incorporate in one of these parks.
I mean, I think a perfect example is Fireman's Park here. So there was a master plan that was developed for Fireman's Park, and public interest has changed. And so there was a request for changes, the addition of pickleball courts and us changing those things. So that's why these plans are good to set in stone, but also know that they're gonna have to be flexible with the industry.
So how do you guys determine a name of a park?
Determine what? I'm sorry.
A name,
name?
how do you name a park around here?
It's a good question. We had a brainstorming session is kind of how we started. I think some of it you look at maybe like landmarks for the area, things that prominent people are, developer landowners,
Features.
natural features. I mean, I think we kind of, maybe what's the purpose of the park? Yeah, I think that's kind of, we sat down and kind of tried to just think, we're like, what about this? How does this ring? How does it sound? Will this make sense? And kind of go from there. Sometimes you do it off of road names.
Major financial donors.
Major financial. So this one will be Blake Park. Yeah. Parkitecture Park. I mean, we'll do it.
That's a ring. That is a ring. All right, it's 7:09. I'm gonna keep going here. So next we've got Shane O'Donnell, which again is a partially developed park that's been in for a number of years now. So this would be expanding on the current recreational amenities. Real quick, geographic discussion. Here's the existing playground, which is connected to the existing bike trail that comes through and then crosses River Road. So what we are showing here is a new basketball court, 2 dedicated pickleball courts, the sidewalk connections, obviously, to those, an open air shelter. And then along the path, we're showing a new bike repair station, again, tying into that bike trail use. That felt like a good spot for that. So not uprooting what is there, but supplementing with new amenities. And this also helps carve out some flexible open space, again, for programming if you need it. Not huge areas, but not small either. So the southeast corner is an existing stormwater management facility. So we're not disturbing that. Obviously, that is very important, but we're working around it. We are showing some evergreens or some sort of screening so we don't have, again, the air ball from the basketball players going right into that pond. Option 2, same elements, different configuration. We've stacked the pickleball courts this time, actually fit the site really well. The connection is strong for both basketball and pickle. And the pickleball would be fenced, so that eliminates the chance for basketballs to roll into the pond, unless you're really taking a wild swing at your pickleball. This also allows for a pretty large, open, flexible space in the southwestern sector.
We have heard from residents in this area asking for these kinds of amenities because there's not a lot there for their children, right? So we had to actually sit down 2 years ago with one resident who was kind of the voice of the neighborhood. You know, she talked to all her neighbors and said, I'll go have a conversation with them. So this one I think is, will be well accepted within, even though it's an existing park and all the homes are developed around it. I think there'll be more than likely an acceptance of it.
Another thing to consider with this park is MPK right down the road. They walk to 3 parks during their summer camp to have lunch every day. And this is actually one of them. So I really like that you've included the water bubbler because they live off of their water bottles and the shaded area would be great for them because they keep them in the sun all day. So.
What I didn't see was a bathroom, like a porta potty.
Yeah, that certainly could be added. That's a pretty,
Especially if, like Stacy said, kids are walking there and sitting down and drinking water. Well, some drinking water makes you use the bathroom.
sure, yeah.
Yep. I think a porta potty would really be necessary there.
I was just gonna say, a lot of my neighbors go to this park and the shelter is huge. I know that was the big critique at this one was just adding a shelter, so it's good to see that.
Yeah, so just a comment. So some of these things like the shade structure, the shelter that we're showing, what I'm showing here is a 16 by 16. So essentially you're gonna get 2 picnic tables underneath. That could get bigger. It could get smaller depending on what the final programming and what we think. Like if Reese is gonna run activities here or at Dale Jenkins, you know, we should size that shelter appropriately for how much that space is gonna get used. So while that is a 16-foot square box, again, that could grow, especially now that we know, I didn't know about the daycare usage. That's an interesting piece. So yeah, we might wanna think about an alternate size for that in the final programming.
Yeah, I would say one of the things is that typically we don't look to put porta potties in areas that we don't do programming. At this point, I don't have any plans for programming for this park. But it would be interesting to know from the daycare group. I mean, if it was something maybe they wanted to help contribute to the cost of a porta potty there, because Jim talked before about how we have passive parks and active parks. There's also different like sizes of parks. So it's mini parks, neighborhood parks, community parks, special use parks, and mini parks are really kind of designed for that local neighborhood where they're walking. And so they would be able to walk back to their homes if they had to use a restroom. When you get to community and neighborhood, that's where it's, you know, they're getting to be a little bit larger and maybe people are traveling, you have parking provided for them. You probably want restrooms in those areas. So things for us to certainly consider.
Yeah, just to clarify, it's Midwest Professional Karate. So not daycare, more like ninja training, so.
I guess one thing to add, something to think about is like, I see this as a potential good location for a rest area or a porta potty, just because it's so connected to the trail system too. And maybe at some point we should look at the trail system as a broader view of where the restrooms are situated, especially with your bike repair area, that maybe that would be a good location for it. But.
So there's a term that we'll sometimes use to get to your point, a string of pearls, right? You look at your trail network and those comfort stations and rest nodes are the pearls along your necklace in your community. So that's an interesting way to look at it. I do think that could be an appropriate spot for one, yeah. All right, should we look at your next pearl here? So Conservancy Commons, again, an established park. Amazing architect designed this many years ago. Love those farms. So it is time.
These are the ones that Greg and I were working on, that architect's plan and pulling out these rocks all day today.
Darn rocks. So there are some things that are tired about the park, so we need to refresh. One is the splash pad. So what we have done is look at a couple options here. And before I get to the pad, I want to talk about some of the other amenities. we thought, okay, well, if we're in here making some improvements, does it make sense to supplement the playground? We know that that equipment is 15 years old. Playground equipment usually has a lifespan of 25 years before it becomes out of code and usually is requiring more maintenance costs to just to upkeep than it's worth. So it's time to think about replacement. So within the next 10 years or so, Conservancy is going to be a candidate for a playground replacement. Well, if we're going to do that, does it make sense to think about some expansion opportunities? Because we know it's a very well-used space. So we have two thoughts on that. One would be on the downslope or downhill side of that stone retaining wall. Let me go back to some of the pictures. So this is that stone wall that separates the upper and lower zones. There is a staircase in place, which is right here, just to the left of where I'm showing the playground expansion. We do a lot of multi-level playground areas. Kids love it, right? They climb up, they run down, they slide. So this would be a great opportunity to do some embankment slides and take advantage of some of that topographical change. As part of that, we would probably look to put in another set of stairs over here on the right. And I guess our view on that was instead of doing concrete formal steps, maybe we make it out of big landscape stones. So it's more of a natural staircase, tying in with all the existing stonework that's out there now. Does that make sense? Okay.
Can I interject quick, Blake?
Yeah, sure.
So I talked earlier about park improvement fees. They cannot be used to replace what's existing, right? So it can only be used for new amenities added to the park. So this lower area, we could replace the play equipment with those park improvement
No,
fees
you're
that
not
we collected.
replacing, you're supplementing.
We're adding, right? But
You're adding, yeah.
up here, this upper part, we can't replace with those impact fees. We have to use tax dollars at that point.
Yep, good point. So the splash pad, if you've been out there, this brown circle is essentially the existing footprint. And around the wet deck is a dry zone for caretakers and others to walk around to avoid getting wet. Actually, before I get into that, the water features are supplied by a mechanical system, which is actually inside the restroom building. There's a big room in there that has the manifold and all the pipes and the water meter and all that stuff. So you have pipe runs going from this building all the way out here to the pad, which is fine, it works. But if we were to redo it, we would take a different strategy. We would actually put a cabinet closer to the new pad, run a new water feed off of, there's actually a lateral stubbed into the park on the east side here. So that reduces our mechanicals, reduces our pipe runs, gives us more water pressure, all those good things. And it allows us to repurpose the mechanical room in this building for either storage, another restroom, or potentially a changing room for those kids who are now wet and need to go and play. So we think that is a win. And then there's a little bit of reconfiguration of the existing trail network here as part of that. So in the first concept, we showed an option that would keep a lot of your ground sprays, but add in lighting. So that extends the potential hours of use of the pad, and it brings in a whole nother element of interest. We do have a few vertical elements that have a mist feature. So it creates this cloud effect, especially with the ground lights. So that was option one. Option two, as we studied the patterns a little bit more, I decided to take that central pad. I'm going to flip back here. Oops. So the brown circle again is right in the middle of this larger path network within the park. So option two takes the pad and shoves it to the side. We realign the path. So now you have continuous flow through the park if you don't want to get wet. You don't have to walk through it or around it. Overall square footage is about the same as what you have now. So both options are equivalent. The playground in concept two is still shown along the bottom of the wall. This option plays off the Conservancy Place sort of nature theme. We have a line of splash pad features that are designed for prairie themes. And so we've shown that here with the flowers, the trilliums, the grasses, some of the daisies, some of the other pieces that really sort of tie into what we've got in the neighborhood. Concept 3, same idea with the splash pad. It's off to the side with the path realignment. You'll notice that the playground expansion is no longer at the bottom of the hill. Now we're showing a small lobe filled in here. It used to look like kind of the yin yang swoop. We've now filled in that yin. So it's a larger footprint up on top. That doesn't mean we couldn't do both in either option. You could do more equipment. To Judd's point, we're adding, in this scenario, we're not replacing something, so the impact fees would come into effect. So in this splash pad concept, we're showing something non-traditional. It's a elevated play structure, but designed for a wet environment. So it would have a small, very small water slide that has a run out. There's still zero standing water like you would have in a pool, but the end of the slide would have a small, essentially friction area. So as the child slides down, they hit the water, and that slows them down so they don't go shooting off into the concrete. The rest of the pad is comprised of ground sprays. Those play structures are quite expensive. And so trying to keep the same budget in mind for all 3 concepts, that leaves us with more ground sprays. If we wanted to go nuts, we can play with it a little bit, but the other thing we have to take into account is the amount of water flow that goes through this pad. Once we hit a certain gallons per day usage, that triggers you into another code level, meaning you're a swimming pool, which means you have lifeguards and you have fencing and you have chemicals and all this other stuff that goes well beyond your current setup. And that was not the direction that we understood you wanted to go, nor would we recommend you go. Am I overwhelming you guys?
It's just sort of surprising to hear that obviously not a pool, but be considered a pool.
You also have to put a no diving sign.
So the water's not going to be recycled?
Not locally. It's going to go back into your overall water treatment system for the village. So in theory, it's community recycled, but not site recycled. Good question. So 3 very different ways to skin.
It actually doesn't, this one as well, I think it just recycles itself into the storm system, not into the sewer system, right? So it's not,
Right.
it's not being treated water, it's just, it goes through our storm and empties into the Ohio River and on down.
You're right, yep.
Yeah, it goes into the storm water basins and then filters through.
Yeah, you can take it to sanitary. Some communities don't like to do that because essentially you're putting a bunch of clean water back into the treatment system, which then offsets your chemicals, and that's whole water science that I'm not as educated on. That was not my forte, but yes, it's
The
I'm not
first
water-
iteration of this, it was actually recycled and it was chemically treated in pumps, and it was a lot more work for us.
Oh, yeah, we got called out there anytime a kid would, go to the bathroom in there, we'd have to shut it down, pump all the water out, do a bunch of chemical, and it was a lot of time consuming efforts.
So 3 very different ways to skin a splash pad in the park. They all have merits, they all have drawbacks, so we'll see what the public wants to do. Okay, last is the PAZF, the parcel adjacent to Ziggy Field. That one needs a new name. As you can see from the existing site photo on the screen, it's a very long, narrow site with a whole lot of topographical change from one end to another. So when we first looked at this, we sort of scratched our head and said, all right, well, what are we going to do here as a community asset? But we had some fun and came up with a couple options. So there was some desire, gosh, I think 15 years ago or so, we did some concept work for you guys for a new skate park, which was going to be right out here behind the building. Don, you may remember that. That didn't stick. So this is a potential for a home for a dedicated skate park. So what we're showing here is a footprint of a skate park we designed here in Dane County 2 years ago. And actually the footprint was about perfect for your site. And then we're showing on the back end here a large playground. And, you know, I talked about using topo change in a playground. This would absolutely need, much like Conservancy, we'd have some walls that would separate it. But we think that's an asset that you can take advantage of and use that to your play value. So we also show a pathway connection up here to the residential to the north. We know that they're going to use it, and we doubt that they're going to walk all the way around the park to get into it. So this would obviously take some communication and coordination with that landowner to the north, but we think it's going to happen whether you provide it or not. The kids will scramble up the hill, they'll climb the fence, they'll do whatever they're going to do to get into something like this. We're showing a shade structure here, kind of central to both the skate park and the playground. I also think the playground is very much appropriate to a site like this, because if you have a family with multi-age children, someone might be on the diamond, someone might not want to be on the diamond. You've got parents who are playing. So that provides a benefit to the owners of Ziggy Field. It provides a benefit to the residential to the north. So I think it's a win-win around. So concept 2 has similar elements, different configuration. We've created a central hardscape plaza here with shade directly adjacent to the access into the field. So we think the field patrons are going to use this space quite a bit. So we've added some yard games, again, the bags, the table tennis, to activate the center of the space. We've got a skate park and a playground. Again, the elevation change is quite drastic on this site. In this concept, we've tried to minimize the amount of walls. And so we've pushed most of that grade change to the west end and tried to leave it natural terracing or natural sloping. That was oh yeah, and then what we're showing here, this hairpin configuration is a smaller pump track, which will be made of concrete, not dirt like the industrial.
So I got a comment. It's a little bit going back to the Conservancy Commons too. Talked about how much it's getting used as a splash park, and if we're going over the volumes, is that, I'm assuming that's a good thing, but to me, it leads me to, should we be having more splash parks, and is that something that we could look at? And I wonder if Ziggy Field might be a location if we start making sure they're spread apart.
With the topo, one thing I was wondering is like, could like some type of water slide, like slip and slide be looked at?
That's a challenging one, unless you have someone monitoring it.
Yeah.
I wish, yeah, we struggle with this topo change.
Yeah.
Because most recreational amenities require a large flat footprint. And so when you get really steep sites like this, it can be difficult to program.
It has a 4% grade to it. So it has that challenge, right? The other thing that we found out today is we don't have technically an agreement to utilize that parking lot for the park. I don't think anybody would, GRB is the owner, I believe. I don't know that they would object, but we certainly will be reaching out to them, probably asking if they'll mind us on occasion having residents park there to utilize that park facility, right? Because they're getting a benefit, as Blake touched on. So they're doing a lot of young adult baseball programming there and bringing people in. So there'll be a benefit for them to use that park, but it's kind of a hybrid, right? It's a neighborhood park because it's the size of it, and the adjacent residential facilities are most likely use it, but it also has the ability to attract people to come from a little bit further away to utilize it, so.
Yeah, and another thing is the Windsor Community Commons or Community Park is just down the road. So one of the things that we've tried to balance with Dale Jenkins Park and this park is how do we bring other amenities to this area of town that aren't also being served at one of those parks. So I believe the Windsor community park does have a splash pad, pickleball courts, a couple playgrounds, and that bike safety track. Um,
On the screen here is the Windsor Community Park that's got this, they've just expanded this pickleball area. I think they've got 4 courts now. They've got this bike safety rodeo thing. Is there a splash pad here?
Yeah, there is
Okay.
the round shape is the splash pad. Yep, right there.
They've got a play equipment. Then there's this trail that runs, that we put in from here to here. Well, we put in the whole way, but that connects our neighborhood to get over to the Dale Jenkins Park. So this is where we're trying to balance all these needs that we have, right? So, you just go up Peterson Crossing Ways, this is where that field, this park will be here. So this is where we're trying to balance all these needs that are in that area.
So would it be better to maybe do like a pump? What do you call them again? A
Pump track?
track or something there, or?
Yeah, so on, let's see, on the concept 2, this is a pump, very small pump track. But that's an option if you didn't want to do something like the skate park, you could put in a natural terrain or natural surface pump track.
Guess I'll take the pause to make a comment. It sounds like the owners of the adjacent park, or I shouldn't call it park, baseball field will probably be pretty influential, especially if we're talking about sharing the parking lot, so.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've received a few communications from the developer of this area with a lot of excitement for when we are going to be starting this process for building a park here.
Okay.
So I think, excuse me, I think that was my last, that was my last slide. That was a lot of content I just threw at you. So I don't know, do we want to get into the weeds on the cost estimates, or you guys want to think about the ideas, or where do you want to take this?
I think we can send to this committee the narrative with the OPCs on them, and you can use that to consider it further, right? This is going to be a long ongoing conversation. I don't know that we need to get into that tonight. But it's certainly a conversation to be utilized to formulate your decisions or thoughts and ideas with it. And again, you'll have that information you can go forth and share with your neighbors and others in the community to solicit feedback from.
And I would add too, if you haven't already, there's the corpse plan that is very influential in all of our discussions and what this was born from.
Yeah, and you can find that on Engage Deforest as well, so.
Blake, I have one question. The one right across from me, you don't have anything drawn up for that yet, do you?
Which one?
Larkspur and Autumn Blaze? Conservancy?
That is the Rivers Turn Phase 3.
Oh, that is?
Yep,
Oh, okay.
yep.
Could you put that one back up again? Sorry. No, just, you know,
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was.
There you go.
Yeah, here you go. So this was the first option, then
Okay.
that's the second.
Where is?
Larkspur's just to the east.
It's weird, this air photo is outdated, the road. Oh, are you driving, Judd? Okay, all right. Yeah, go ahead.
Where's Eric live for the record?
Autumn Blaze and Larkspur, right on the corner. So, I mean, I'm literally right in front of it. I just don't know which way I'm looking.
Yeah, there's just 2 houses in front of you, basically, to the park.
So, right there. Oh, down here. That's, yep, right there, So, okay. I'm right here in the corner. There's no people will start asking me about it. I know that. They're gonna start asking questions. Now that the road's in.
Then we can tell them, what was it, June?
June 5th, Fireman's Park. And then July 1st and September 18th. And then there will be comments. You can comment on Engage DeForest as well. 5th is Fireman's Park. Dale Jenkins Park is July 21st. And then Western Green is September 18th.
And I'll say this, and you correct me for how wrong I'm saying, but this is concept. We're taking really comments now and really forever, but at the most part, I'm assuming on Engage DeForest, there'll be a comment thing that people can link in and make
Yep.
sure it gets sent to Blake or you.
Yep, we'll use comments on Engage DeForest, and then at our Park Connects, we'll bring them all together.
If your neighbors reach out to you, please write down their comments and tell them to go to Engage DeForest to make sure it gets noted.
Yeah, and this is the beginning of the process. I mean, the first lift that we have undertaken here was to generate the ideas and put it on paper. Then you start the feedback loop with the public. Ultimately, you guys will decide on the preferred direction for each of those sites. And then you move into the final design and engineering phase to bid and then construct.
If we're lucky, the parks might have names by the time we.
Yeah. Guys, thank you for letting me talk at you for a little bit here tonight. Obviously, I've talked myself out, so I'm losing my voice. But thank you again for having me at the table and continuing to let us play in the sandbox together.
Well, thank you.
Literally.
Glad we had the time. Yeah,
Great ideas.
thank you, Blake. So the next thing on the agenda, again, I don't have the agenda, but I believe is this going to be updates, public services update.
So a lot of road projects are done. Innovation Drive was resurfaced. And Mr. Manhole is being poured today. So for those that aren't familiar, Mr. Manhole, they come back, we cut this ring around the sewer in the road and then fill that back with cement. So that way you don't get settling or rising of the manhole. It makes it for a smoother ride for the residents and makes it for a smoother ride when we're plowing snow. We're not catching the casting. It's a jarring experience when you do that in a snowplow. It wakes you up if you're not awake. And it damages both that casting as well as the plow. So it saves us quite a bit of money on the long haul from it. And it also helps with I&I, which is infiltration. So you don't get that water seeping back in, right? If you've ever seen a manhole degrade, water gets in there. There's cement that's all the way around that where most of the infiltration can occur. So that's what's happening there. We did resurface Stevenson and Burton Boulevard a couple weeks before that. Now we're resurfacing Hill and Meadow Lane. They put the binder down and the top lift will go next. South Street will be shortly after that. There's a couple sections of South Street. Highway V will begin here in July.
Middle of July.
Middle of July. Dennis Drive they're mobilizing. They're starting to stage equipment there next week and start in earnest after Memorial Day and in the beginning of June. So Dennis Drive is for those that don't know, is got the long, basically dead end that runs just a little west of Timbers, runs back to here. So these folks will have an improved gravel driveway to get out during the road construction period. But a reconstruction is where we take from the base all the way back up, right? So all the utilities underground are replaced and repurposed, new curbing, and then new road is put down. when I say resurfacing, that just means we take the top layer of the asphalt off and then put down a fresh new coat, which is what we did on Innovation and Stevenson and others, so. And then there is, on occasion with resurfacing, spot replacement of curb and gutter that may have fallen or got chipped up or whatnot, so. Cake Parkway, that is in the process right now, so this extension of Cake Parkway, it currently is in this aerial. There's a cul-de-sac here. This cul-de-sac is gone, and this road is being extended from here to Green Acres Lane. So this is west of the interstate, south of Highway V. The Dickmans are building their fourth building here. The Dickmans built the Frito-Lay building that you see on Highway 51. They built the building by Little Potato Company. They built Porter Pipe and Supply, which is up on Stevenson. So this is their fourth building they're building, and they probably are pretty close to having a tenant in there if they don't already. When they build them, they have somebody lined up. So these are our new areas. We may see activity for potentially this year if a development comes into this area. But otherwise, this will probably be next year where we've had this improvement stuff. So that's a newer road. This development may begin this year, which will have a phase one, which road impacts coming. We'll know more about that as we go along. And south by Fleet Farm, this development, Continental Properties, is building in this area. They are building apartment, two-story apartment homes, rentals. And so the extension of Tierney Drive from here, extending here, and then this Glencoe Drive they'll be putting in. So this will be starting here. Well, they've already started, and they'll be blasting some rock out in this area that's occurring there. So there's a lot happening. We've had many pre-construction meetings that have occurred. Pepsi Way, Quick Trip, this road is now in and drivable, available for folks. This section here at Williamsburg Way and Metro Drive will be closed. Huh? Oh, they closed it today. So that you can no longer turn into here to get back to Camper World or Forest River. So folks will have to come up north to 19 and come around Pepsi Way. There's a new wide exchange here, but this is being improved this year with stop and go lights, traffic signals, long overdue. Traffic signals here on Williamsburg Way in 19 were turned on last week, Thursday, and they're operational. So folks that live over here, this new development that's occurring with the ice rinks and whatnot, have an easier path to get out to 19, and this certainly will be as we go with this.
When are they expecting that to be done, the ice rink and everything?
The
ice rink.
Oh, the ice rink and stuff should be done September-ish.
We've been told.
Yeah.
The indoor portion, I think the outdoor portion is going to be done in 2026.
So like the grill and everything else too? Brew pub or whatever they're gonna.
I'm not sure about the restaurant or.
Rhonda's is opening another location there. So next to the apartments that are there to the north by Meritor, or what is it? Not Meritor. It used to be Meritor, whatever. That's the name of the. Meritor.
Is that the?
You got another one.
The new one, the big white one? 51?
It's kitty corner from UW Health, right? It's this building here is the clinic. So
I get what you mean then.
Aranda's will be built is here already. That building, they're just finishing it off. So
It's a lot of
we have a lot of different projects that have occurred. So
Judd, can I ask you to go back to the property that's owned by Fred?
sure.
I forget the name of the actual subdivision, so I apologize.
Terrapin Way now or something.
Yep, Terrapin Ray. What I wanted to mention there is that there's a dedication to the public from Daly Road to River Road. I think that's dedicated to the public.
This section here, yeah. So we'll have access to get into the river system. There'll also be a park amenity put in here, and that will have Actually kind of goes all this general direction. There's a lot of topography to this, so we'll have to do some general planning, but I think it's going to be more open space. There may be an opportunity for something up here in this northeast corner where it's more flat, pickleball, or I don't know. We'll have to kind of think through what are there, as well as then there'll be space here for a park. It's not ideal parkland, right? It's adjacent to the interstate. It's a noise mitigation barrier basically for these folks, but certainly gives us an opportunity to potentially put in a disc golf course through there. At least it starts at one, right? And give people an opportunity to utilize that space. We have plans for that park to extend further to the north as this develop out, so. 10 Oaks, Three Bridges. Yahara Grove was my favorite name. Dun, dun, chicka, chicka, dun. I'm thinking, sorry. China Grove, you remember that song?
A question, is this the one right next to the cemetery here?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's not gonna be condos there, or?
There'll be rentals, again, more, so the Continental property that I talked about down by Fleet Farm, they built the Springs across from Target in Sun Prairie, if you're familiar with that rental space, if you can picture that, that's what'll be here. Fred is another variation on that.
Fred stands for something. That's
Fiduciary Real Estate Development Group is Fred. It's now Terrapin Way. You will be able to play Ghost in the Graveyard in this neighborhood, which is nice.
Hey,
One more question. On the way down or coming up towards my house. Now, I've noticed across from like the little Vienna University.
Yep.
Are they building houses there?
There are condos being built here. Brian Sippel is building another 17 units. We are getting a parking lot here for the village and a dedication of the path to get through. So it'll be another entry point into that conservancy area.
Where's the hotel going in at?
The one hotel is going in here north on Jean Street in this parcel here. And there's a proposed hotel down by Fleet Farm on 19. I don't know where that's at. That's a planning and zoning thing.
it's right by the Arby's or one of those lots along 19. I think that's Cornerstone, if I remember the name of it.
Cobblestone. I don't know if they may be coming here. I just don't know where that's at in their,
Getting the Candlewood one by the golf.
that was Cobblestone as well, but that's not going there. If it's gonna go, to go here.
Yeah, it's one of the further to the right.
It's where the trail used to be.
The what?
Trail, it's that one to the left of the trail.
It's a trail there. There used to be a street there.
Yeah, used to be a street, sorry.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on. I think a good point is we spent a lot of time talking about parks today, but this is a committee that talks about public works a lot too, so.
Yeah, and I also wanted to mention it's Public Works Week, so if you see our crew out and about, say, tell them thank you. They do a lot of hard work, and we got a fantastic crew that loves working for the residents. So.
Thursday, we have Touch a Truck here in the park. And a lot of kids come and we give them like fake hard hats they can run around with. We read stories to them from the library. They host an event, and then kids get in there and honk horns, and I encourage that. Drives the people in the office nuts, but it's fun.
I will say they did a good job off Innovations. You come around the bridge and you go through the trees to the church up there, you know what I mean?
Oh, the trail?
Yeah, that turned out nice.
Yeah, we pave our own trails now, and we do a lot of our own street maintenance as much as we can, so. We got a good crew that likes to be innovative and try new things, and we save a lot of money by doing it ourselves, so. Get a lot more done.
The crack fills that you did in Western Green really they're great because they were coming apart.
Yeah,
You did a lot of them. I mean, it's nice because
Good.
it'll extend the.
yeah, crack filling will extend the life of the trails and roads, and we
Yeah.
have some chip sealing projects yet to do that, which are gonna be coming in June. So it'll be
Okay, so maybe next update is at the Parks and Recreation, if I remember.
Me. So we had our first movie in the park last Friday. We had a lower turnout, which I believe is largely due to the weather. There was a few times when I was sitting at home and I was like, I think our screen's gone. I don't know. That wind gust was pretty hefty. But apparently we kept our screen the whole time. So thanks to the guys, they made sure it was really hunkered down so that it didn't go anywhere. As Judd mentioned, there's the Touch It Truck event on Wednesday, celebrating the Public Service Week and working with the library. And then our next movie event is going to be May 30th. That's also when we're doing the bike rodeo with PD. So we'll close a portion of Stevenson Street and have that set up there. We are also renting a digital screen that will allow us to start the movie earlier. So we're kind of testing to see how that goes. Because even though with the poor weather on Friday, we still had to start the movie at like 8:20. And, you know, when it's geared towards younger families, like that's definitely bedtime. And then you go for an hour-and-a-half movie and you're toast. So we're going to test that out, just see the feedback that we get from the community and maybe look to do something more with that next year. June 5th is Piano Fondue, so that's the night that we're doing the Park and Connect, and it will be the dueling pianos. And then we're knee deep in the DeForest Dragon Arts stuff, so we're finalizing all the booth assignments right now. We're looking at having 148 booths this year. So we're really thrilled with the interest that we've got and continuing to grow it. And Trisha is figuring out that whole puzzle of all of that. We've had 4 tournaments out at the athletic complex so far this year, so those have been going good. Weather, you know, has not been the best, but still we haven't, I think we only had to cancel one day on the dirt fields. Otherwise, we've been able to play all the games.
How's the food sales been this season so far?
You know, it's been a little lower, but I think that's largely due just because the temperatures have been, you know, I think when we see it gets warmer, we're having more beverages, we see our sales go up. So it hasn't been bad by any means. We're doing quite well, but definitely lower than I think what we're typically used to on weekends. And then the community garden is open. We added 4 additional plots again this year. We're getting to a point where we're almost at capacity of the number of plots that we can add. And we'll be looking at maybe actually moving a soccer field so that we can add some more plots next year, because with adding the 4, we still did have a wait list. But that continues to be a really great program and a lot of support. So those are all the things I have.
And Greg, Natural Resources update?
Sure. So natural resources, we've got a donation. Well, we received a grant from Dane County for native plants. So we received those this weekend, picked those up. We got 42 plants from Dane County that we'll put in over at Liberty Land Park near the community gardens. So we've got 2 areas for pollinator gardens, we call them. So we're expanding those to help pollinate the gardens. They look really nice in the summer, actually all year long, once they start growing. Let's see, stream bank stabilization project. We're still designing this project. We're hoping to go out and bid in August now. Plans are almost finalized. We'll hopefully get those here in the next month. And we're doing 2 phases this year of construction. This was supposed to be a 5-year plan. We're already in year 3. So we haven't even constructed yet. So we're looking to construct 2 phases this year. Down by Sunnybrook Park, there's gonna be one kind of on the curve and then one down towards River Road. And then down by Larkspur, where that bridge crosses the river, and then Bluestem, sorry, not Larkspur, but Indigo and Bluestem area. There's a location there, and then down towards Innovation Drive, just the north of Innovation Drive, there's a area that will be stabilizing. And part of that project is getting root balls, with, what are they called again? Yeah, they're, sorry, I can't remember the word, but it's basically a tree. You get the whole root ball and 10 feet of the stem of the trunk, and you put them in the bank, they dig them in. The root ball is in the bank, which prevents the erosion. We're actually getting all the, as many trees as we can from the developer for, that's developing on River Road. Cause they're taking down a bunch of trees, so that'll save the village a lot of money by getting those instead of paying a contractor to buy them and provide them for this, stream bank project. So we'll be hauling those off, starting next week, and we're gonna store them at our Shanku site.
We're starting to go out for additional grants for the phase 3 of this project. So we're going to work with the DNR again on a surface water grant, a trim grant. We're going to reach out to the Madison Foundation for another grant opportunity there. So to date, we've gotten close to $600,000 in grants. You can find that information on our Engage to Forest as well. I don't know where it is on here, but
We've also had our natural areas work day last weekend. Thank you, Don and Doc. We're there to help. We also had another family pick up garbage throughout the park at Western Green Park. We had other people signed up, but must have had other things going on that day. They didn't show up, but we pulled a lot of weeds and cut some buckthorn, and that's about it for natural resources. If anybody's got any questions on that, feel free to ask. And I guess maybe I'll just add this, since we got a lot of new people. If you're walking the trails and you see Quercus Land Stewardship, you might see their trucks and guys burning and cutting down invasive brush, and they're a contractor that takes care of all of our prairie plantings and natural areas. We also plant all of our stormwater areas and native plantings as well, so they maintain all that. So they maintain well over 300 acres plus of natural areas for us with stormwater basins. So you see them, they're always willing to answer questions and things like that. So
Yes, I'd invite you all to look through the village's website as what different studies and stuff we have available for you. I forget the names of all of them. I suppose at some time we'll combine them all into links and webpage and stuff too, so.
yeah, they're all on the Engage Deforest. So we got the Taylor conservation plan. We've got the habitat master plan for along the river. And then we've got the Stantec Cardinal Stream Bank plan as well. So.
I will add, we just received this land. It's now ours. This is where we plan to potentially put in a mountain bike trail, as well as, so you take a mountain bike path on one direction, you could walk in the other direction. Next fall, we're working with the University of Wisconsin on University Alliance projects. University is CITY city. It's where we work with university students on a whole variety of projects, right? Like this past semester, I had 4 different university groups, cohorts I was working with. Reese has been involved, Greg's been involved. This one, I'm probably going to bring Greg in on as well, but they're going to do this and look at from an ecological perspective, like it makes sense what we can do here. It's not going to harm the environment, but they're going to give us, like, we should avoid these areas and we could do it in these areas kind of thing. They won't necessarily help us design it, but they'll give us all that information and behind the scenes stuff. So we'll be beginning that project this year. And then we've got mountain bike folks that we'll be leaning on for the building of it. So it'll be a minimal cost, but we'll get started with that conversation with that group of university students in the fall, so.
Okay, thank you. So the next item on the agenda was the any other business, and that's generally a time for any committee member to bring up something that maybe they've heard from the public or any other comment, I guess. Usually there's not a whole lot from staff at that point, but there always could be. The one thing that I would like to bring up, being that I'm sitting here now probably for the last time on this committee, is I thank you all. I do want to state though that technically this committee should be running probably quite a bit closer to Robert Rules of Order, if you've heard of that term. Generally, it's a pretty loose committee. I personally like that as a chair because I think it's important to get a lot of discussion in. But if Jan is going to be chairing and she gets to decide what to do next, but if we do go that way, more of following Robert's rules, you need to make sure like you have the floor rather than maybe interrupting or just talking and things. But I mention that because I try to keep the meetings to about 2 hours and try to gauge it a little bit on the number of topics. So I'm hoping that's okay for you guys. And again, we'll see what Jan does. I'm a few minutes over right now, but I think it's great that we had this conversation because I think these parks are going to be really important for our community. So it's great that we had the time tonight, and I hope I didn't steal too much time from all you and your families. I guess really appreciate that you're here because you make sure to thank your families, your children, your pets, future pets. And with that, I think we will move on. Go ahead, Dawn. We got,
I have just a question for Reese. Last year, the first meeting, we had a form that we had to sign.
Yeah, we'll have to get people sworn back in. Maybe,
Kelly.
did you do that?
Yeah, we did something. I know we did.
No, but have any of you?
Just HR paperwork.
All right, we'll have to get with Kelly, our clerk. So there is a formal process that, we have to swear at you to put you, it's a swearing in thing. We don't, Reese has got it.
Just-
No, so it's pretty easy. I guess we should ask her where that, we'll get that to you and we'll do that at the next meeting.
Okay.
Y'all are officially in, but it's just the final.
to make sure.
I just have one question.
Go ahead.
I know at the last board meeting, it was mentioned that the cadence of this committee may change as far as the meetings, depending on like how much there is to talk about. Has there been a decision on that?
I think that's gonna really come from the committee and staff I'm looking at. It was originally created and we were meeting once a month. We've been canceling meetings. There's been a few of them, probably 3 or 4 maybe that we canceled in the last year for lack of topics. So I think that's the thought, is that it may be more appropriate to be quarterly. That's what somebody was telling me, but I don't know how far that's gone in discussion.
I think it was proposed by Jane that this would be as needed or at least quarterly, right? So if we need to meet more often, we can, but it's really as the need of the committee is there, right? If there's things that we have. So, we don't always have stuff for every village board meeting. Oftentimes we don't, right? So, to spare you your time and our time, we're not just going to meet for the sake of meeting, right? So we want to make sure that there's reasons to, which is why, so like that July meeting for the Park and Connects, we'll for sure meet. It'll be an agenda item for folks to be out there, but it won't be as formal of a committee meeting as this was, because that's more of a listening session from residents and whatnot. So the June meeting, I guess, will be determined if we have things that we need to discuss with you or get sworn in for officially that, so.
I would think just every other month would be fine. Every 2 months instead of quarterly. I think every 2 months. I mean, there's enough that happens. Plus, I'd like to see stuff like this. This is sort of important. I mean, we live here, we gotta know sort of what's going on, you know?
Greg, you want to get that other door open so Blake can get out the building now?
Glad we're such a close-knit community, which reminds me, I wanted to ask one more question. Now that the fluoride thing, is there any more about that? Now that we voted on it and our recommendation and everything?
So it was removed in the end of March. We removed fluoride, stopped fluoridating the water. There's no, at this point, it's not been brought back. The board didn't change. There's not been a motion to reconsider or do anything different. So for the time being, we're not fluoridating the water.
Okay. Anything else? So Don, I think I heard something about number 10.
Yes. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Don. Is there a second?
I'll say.
Thank you, Eric. All those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously at, if I could speak, at 8:07.
8:06.
Depends on what clock you're looking at. Yep. Thank you, guys.
Thanks first.